So connecting with the inner child, or reconnecting for many of us, for we believe or think we may have lost the connection. Oftentimes we have more likely forgotten it because other aspects of life, other qualities of life have seemingly become more important over time. We have been taught this way or learned to behave and live in such a way. So connecting or reconnecting with the inner child is a very important aspect, whether we're talking about spirituality or awakening or simply mindfulness, or just being more, reaching our potential as a human being, whether it's spiritual or not, even in a physical, mental, emotional sense. Being connected with that inner child is super important. And so many people, they often are led to think they need to dive into the past to reconnect with the inner child. They need to reconnect with those memories, experiences, sensations that they once had as a child. And whereas that may be a helpful method for some people, it is certainly not the only way to do it. Just in this moment of here and now, the present moment, we can connect with the inner child simply by sharing the qualities the inner child shows and embodies. Whether we're talking of curiosity, wonder, carefree, lighthearted, love, acceptance. We could probably go on and on, but these are some of the major ones that are coming to mind right now. Some of the most important, most common ones that many of us are often missing. Living lives, trying to be mature adults, and we've kind of cut this aspect of ourselves out of the picture so that we can be more in the role of a mature adult. And so people are often called immature. We're often defining people, how mature they are. I've been called childish myself beforehand. And, I could take this as a compliment, whereas obviously in certain situations it's not being used as a compliment, but more as an insult. But how we take it is totally up to us, how it's being received, processed. And so there seems to be this fine line of being in the green zone of childlike and childish, and then the red zone where we don't want people to be. We expect them to not behave that way, or to not do that. So these expectations come up. And this is often what changes the child, the nature of the child in all of us, into more of this mature, limited, stuck in the box kind of deal adult. So these expectations we need to be very careful with, whether we're focused on ourselves, whether we're raising children, whether we're interacting with actual children or not. That inner child is within us all. So it's there for everybody, not just those who are actively raising a child in their home or working with children, etc. So again, these are very important attributes to remember, to realize, to reconnect with. With Halloween coming up, for example, we can take this in two primary ways. It can be a very fear-based holiday, time of the year, where spirits and ghosts and demons and negative energy and fear-based energy and entities can be predominant. We can look at this in a very mature, fear-based way, very adult-like, what I mean by mature, not necessarily mature. We can look at it in a very adult-like, limited perspective kind of way. Or we can choose to look at it through the eyes and the mind set of a child. Again, more curious, more carefree. We're not stuck in all these beliefs of negativity and entities and things that can so much harm us. It is more of a time of wonder, of when this unknown, subtle, spiritual, magical dimension really opens up after the autumn equinox and moving forward. It's this time of year where these energies become more dominant in all of our lives, whether we realize it or not. So being more carefree, a carefree attitude, a carefree outlook is crucial towards how we're perceiving everything. Whether it's a time of year or a holiday or a relationship or any experience or sensation. Our outlook, our attitude changes it so drastically. It is ridiculous. And it's hard to notice this if we're just stuck in one attitude, if we don't try and mix it up a little bit. So for many people, it may be necessary to find an equalizing balance, a moderation of playing the mature adult and the immature child. For some people, maybe they just want one or the other, and they need to delve very deeply into that role, that identity, or that energy for a time before they kind of go back. Maybe they go back and forth a little bit. So it may be different for everybody. I have no idea what is highest and best for all of us. Merely sharing some ideas, some perspective here. That overall it seems very important to get in touch, reconnect with this inner child for all kinds of different reasons. Now, again, we don't need to define it very much. If we're being mature or immature, we don't need to go around defining ourselves and others, trying to figure out. That's, I think, getting too far away from the whole idea of connecting with the inner child. Because the child doesn't define and judge like the adults have learned to do. They simply just exist. They are said to be purely spontaneous. Especially when we allow them to just do whatever they feel the need to do in the moment. You will be amazed just to see them doing whatever they want. No real rules or guidelines applying to them. They're oftentimes not trying to hurt anybody, not trying to do anything illegal, because all of that hasn't been ingrained in their system yet. They haven't been programmed with all that information. So they're just so free, lighthearted. And many of us are often missing that. We're going about our lives, especially with issues that are coming up, whether they're personal issues or global issues or whatever. We're often looking at these issues very seriously, very determinedly. We're going to change them, or we're going to focus on them. And maybe some people, at times they need to do that. Again, maybe they need to delve deep into that and get all in that energy and see what it feels like for a time. But others of us, we can be more childlike. We can look at these issues in a more childish way, with more curiosity. We don't have to draw conclusions so quickly. We can make things a little bit lighter. We don't have to take them completely unseriously, make them completely non-existent. So there's a difference between ignoring and just completely dismissing what's happening, whether it's to us or to others or to the collective. And the difference between that and just making it a little bit lighter. Learning to laugh a little bit at ourselves, at others, at the situations as a whole. Not taking everything so seriously. Not always looking for something to stress us out or to be upset about. Jumping from one thing to the next, one responsibility to another. There's more to life than responsibility. And the child knows that. Whether we're talking about an actual child or our inner child, we know it deep down. There's a longing for something more. So it seems we must be careful about getting too deeply involved or identifying with these issues too deeply, because they can cause extreme harm to ourselves. Maybe the issues themselves already are causing harm, but by taking on more stress, more anxiety, by messing with our system even more, we're just intensifying the effects. So whereas we may be focused on trying to fix it or change it or this or that, or oftentimes we may be doing more damage, more harm than good. So we need to be very careful about how seriously we're taking this or that, whether ourselves, whether others, situations, experiences, and so forth. So bringing that inner child energy into each situation, each moment. This, again, drastically changes the way we perceive it. If we look at something as an adult, it's like we have a certain filter over our eyes, over all the senses, over the brain, over the entire system. It's like a certain filter is there, changing, distorting, perhaps, all information. If you ask a question to a child and then to an adult, you're going to get two entirely different answers. And both of them are acceptable. Both of them are necessarily true for that person at that time, in that moment. But you will notice the perspective, the answer may be drastically different, especially if that adult is not in touch with their inner child very well. So bringing that inner child energy into everyday life, every moment, helps us to look at these issues, these current issues, in a different light. Does not mean we're dismissing it or ignoring it. It means we don't necessarily have to get so sucked in and draw conclusions about it, which gives us the opportunity to be open to more perspectives, be more open to various ideas, and perhaps will allow us to come at the issue from a different angle, in a different way than we ever thought possible. And this right now, with everything that's happening, seems very necessary, because all of this is affecting the child as well as the adult. It's affecting everyone. It is not an exclusive issue. And in whatever we're talking about, it affects us all. So we need to be able to look at it from the perspective of the all, and not just the individual or the adult.